All right, please bear with us through any audio complications that we might have. First time running audio in this space. Thank you for being here, everyone, to our free Mahdi Ali campaign kickoff. We're really excited to share Mahdi's story with you and how we are currently setting a path forward for his freedom that we would love for you to join us. Just an important thing to know is on the tables in front of you are copies of the zines. That's going to be the main thing we're kind of running through with folks. So please follow along with us. We also have slides up. If you're listening online, we will share some information at the end where you can give us contact information. We will figure out a way to connect with you and get you a copy or pen of the zine. So just to kick off, my name is Nick Nelson. I'm a teacher at South High School. I'm one of your hosts. I also want to throw it over to my co-host, MJ.
Justin. My name is MJ. I'm a teacher at South. Hello. I'm a teacher at South High School. I am a freelance journalist. I wrote a deep dive investigation for Unicorn Riot into the case of Mahdi Ali that we'll hear about today. And I'm also a proud rank and file MFT member. Thanks for coming.
And you were welcomed by another co-host, Isaac Nelson. And we have some special guests that are going to join us today. We've got Mahdi Ali, who will be calling in. We also have Brenda Johnson. Brenda, would you just wave to folks? Brenda is going to be joining us for a roundtable discussion briefly, as is Marvina Haynes over there. Marvina's waving. And Monique Colors-Dottie is going to be here as well. And we just have some shout outs of people that have been really instrumental and helpful in this process. We want to thank Michelle Gross from Communities United Against Police Brutality. She would have been here today, but her organization is part of a big national something today. That's very important. We were like, Michelle, please do that. We also want to thank Nick Hallinger, who printed the zines as a gift to the movement. We also want to thank Sam Erkey for assisting with this. We want to thank Marsha Howard, Katina Taylor, the presidents of both chapters of the MFT 59, for welcoming us into this space. We also want to thank former Ward 2 councilperson Cam Gordon and Mahdi's family as well. So we just wanted to say thank you to all of these folks involved. Our agenda for today is we're going to do a welcome and a grounding. We're then going to dive into the zine, which we're calling Target of Injustice, the Wrongful Conviction of Former MPS Student Mahdi Ali and How We Fight Back. We're then going to invite Brenda Johnson and Marvina Haynes up here to do a school to prison pipeline roundtable discussion. We'll take a brief break, and then we're going to just share some campaign kickoff materials, and we'll end with a little letter writing event if you're able to stick around and stay with us. So just a note about food. Everything over there should be gluten-free. Almost everything should be vegan as well. The only things that aren't are sour cream, cheese, and butter. There is vegan sour cream, vegan butter. I can't attest to how good or bad it is, but we've got it for you. And if you'd like to help pay for any of the food, there is a QR code over there. I'm sorry, my Venmo name is @DaddyNickNelson, and that's embarrassing as an adult man. But any money that goes to it will go towards paying for the food. If any extra comes, we'll pay off our website or something like that. But please do not feel like you have to. If we may bake potatoes so that it would be nice and cheap and affordable. We're just happy that you're here. Thank you. So to just welcome everyone and sort of ground us in where we're at. Mahdi Ali, he was 15 years old and was a student at the school that I teach at, South High School, back in 2010. And we're going to hear a lot about his story, but I think what we need to just kind of live in for the next, hour, 45 minutes is just recognizing that, Mahdi's case is one of hundreds of people in Minnesota that are currently in prison for, crimes that they did not commit. And these are all systemic issues that are much larger than we're going to be able to address here. But the thing that has been really empowering to me as I've been working with MJ and Isaac and working with Marvina and working with Michelle Gross is knowing that all of the work moves the movement forward. And so we're hoping that people, if this is your first time ever doing this kind of work, like take it in and see this as a way to educate yourself and learn how this works so that we can take this to those hundreds of other fights that we need to have. And I think that's all that I had for the grounding. I just want to thank everyone again for being here. And I am going, oh no, actually I've got a little quiz for folks. I forgot that I had some fun with it. So we got 3 questions for you, and I want people to go ahead and just shout out answers, however you want to do it. So the first question is, how much did the rate of incarceration among Black men and boys in Hennepin County increase during the Mike Freeman, Aiden Klobuchar years as Hennepin County attorney? That was a 28-year stretch from 1991 to 2019. Do people think it's 50%, 100%, 300%, or about 600%? I heard 600%. You are correct. During this time overall in Minnesota, there was a 534% increase in the state prison population. And Hennepin County was the largest driver of that increase. Our second question is, if you were listening during the grounding, you'll know the answer. How many provably innocent people are estimated to be currently incarcerated in Minnesota state prisons? 10 or more, 25, 100, or 200 plus?
100 plus.
I mean, with the plus, you're right, but it's unfortunately 200 plus. 200 plus folks. During Keith Ellison's first term as Attorney General, he instructed his staff to develop a list of cases that they believe have provably innocent people. And during his first term, I think they were able to get like 3 or 4 of them. So this is a significant problem in Minnesota that needs to be addressed. And the third question. In high-profile wrongfully incarcerated cases in Minnesota, the victim's innocence was enough for them to achieve their freedom. True or false? False. Yep, exactly. Unfortunately, the people's innocence has never been the thing that gets them their freedom. It is the movement that is able to sort of force those people out of prison. And so that is what we're here today. And now I'm going to pass it over to MJ, who is going to break down the case against Mahdi Ali using that zine.
Thank you. Again, my name is MJ Sirdar. So I wrote a deep dive investigation for Unicorn Riot about Mahdi Ali's case. And I found over 24 issues that, after analyzing, it proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Mahdi Ali is innocent. And so we're going to break down 6 issues today, but I encourage everybody to read my report. You can check it out at www.unicornriot.ninja. And so if you all want to follow along in the zine, we break it down pretty well. And so let's go ahead and kick it off. So I'm going to break down 6 major issues today for you. Major issues with this case. And so, number 1, so the first issue is there were unreliable witnesses. The state had 4 star witnesses who all had incentives, to blame Mahdi for these crimes. And so this happened on January 6th in 2010. It happened at the Seward Halal Market on East Franklin in South Minneapolis. Three people were tragically murdered in a botched robbery. Two young men went into the store to rob the store, and it quickly went wrong. And within 62 seconds, three men were murdered. And so, again, Mahdi Ali was convicted of the crimes. There was another guy who was convicted as the accomplice. And so, the second point I'm going to break down is the evidence that points to another killer. The third point I'm going to break down is there's no credible evidence that actually linked Mahdi to the crimes. The fourth point we're going to break down is Target Corporation's role in Mahdi's conviction. The fourth point I'll break down is the prosecutor's office under the 10 years of Mike Freeman and Amy Klobuchar. We saw a lot of not just the increase of Black boys and men in prisons, but corruption and corporate funded justice, where Target Corporation set the parameters for law enforcement in Minneapolis and Hennepin County. And lastly, we'll talk about MPD's investigation, or the lack of investigation, and all the things that they could have done to really get the actual killer and prove Mahdi's innocence. So we'll break that down. So we'll start with the first bullet point: unreliable witnesses that the state used to convict Mahdi Ali. So if you could open up to this page in the zine. Actually, let me give a little bit of background real quick about Mahdi. Let's back up. So we got open up to this page, and I just want to tell. So Mahdi Ali, again, he was 15 years old when he was arrested, when he was wrongly arrested in 2010. A few years, about 6 years prior to that, Mahdi came to the U.S. from a refugee camp in Kenya. And Mahdi was brought here by two people that were not his parents. He was trafficked to the U.S. And once they got here to Minneapolis, they abandoned him. So Mahdi spent a lot of times in group homes, in foster homes. He was in and out of juvenile detention for running away from group homes, for committing petty crimes of survival. He did a lot of stealing. And he was a street kid before he was reunited with his family when they got here. And I just want to shout out to Mahdi's family who arrived here. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate you. That's Mahdi's mother, Zainab. And so Mahdi, he was a student. So he was about 9 years old when he arrived. And of course, they changed his name and his birth date when he arrived. His real name is not Mahdi Ali. It's actually Khalid Farah. Mahdi Ali was the name of the child of the people that brought him here. Their child died, and they needed Mahdi for immigration purposes. They had a family visa, and so when their child died, they had no opportunity to come here, so they needed a child to bring with them, and they were neighbors. So Mahdi was actually friends. So Khalid Farah, I should say, who we call Mahdi, was friends with the Mahdi who died. They were friends growing up together in Kenya. And so when Mahdi came to the US, they changed his birth date. So I think they made him 11 or 12 years old. He went to Sanford Middle School. He spoke no English when he started at Sanford. That's the place where he learned English. Actually, I taught at Sanford last year. There's still one or two teachers there who remembered Mahdi. From there, he went on to high school. He went to Roosevelt for a little bit, and then he went to South High School, where the three of us worked. And like I said, in 2010, he was snatched from his community. He was snatched from his family, and he was incarcerated for crimes that he did not commit. So Mahdi, his life story has been one of tragedy and one of being bounced around by adults who should have been caring for him. So now let's get into the case. So open up your zines to the page. I'll break down the unreliable witnesses. So like I mentioned, there was 4 key witnesses that helped convict Mahdi Ali. The first person, Abdi Salan Ali, he was the original suspected killer in the triple homicide at the Seward Market. The second suspect is Ahmed Ali, who was the accomplice. He was positively identified as the accomplice in the murders. And he did 12 years in prison, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then the police, they used 2 snitches. So there was a jailhouse snitch and a paid police informant who both testified against Mahdi, said Mahdi admitted these crimes to them. And of course, Mahdi denies that. And again, all 4 people had incentives to blame Mahdi, and they got something out of it. So Abdi Salan, we did not include his image, but it appears that he received a secret deal for testifying against Mahdi, although all the evidence pointed to him, and I'll get to that in a minute. But all the evidence pointed to him as being the killer. Ahmed Ali and Abdi Salan are cousins. They're not related to Mahdi Ali. They were all friends. They all met at Sanford Middle School, and they were friends growing up here in the Twin Cities. But Mahdi is not related to these 2. These 2 are cousins. They're blood cousins, first cousins. And so Ahmed Ali, he was coerced by authorities. He faced 6 counts of murder. He was originally charged with murder, and he was facing a life sentence in prison. And he only got a deal after he pointed the blame at Mahdi Ali. So again, he was coerced, and he said this to a Fox 9 news investigator over a decade after being in prison. So a year before he was released. And again, we'll get into that in a little bit. Go ahead and open up to the next page. So the second point I'm going to break down is the evidence that points to another killer. So again, Abdi Salan Ali, he was never charged with any crimes, despite the surveillance video from the Seward Market showing the killer wearing his jacket. So these crimes were caught on surveillance video. The 2 suspects were wearing masks, so you can't positively identify, the suspects by face in the videos. But police were able to identify Ahmed Ali from his clothing. And again, the killer was wearing Abdi Salan's jacket during the murders. And Abdi Salan actually, he acknowledged this at court, at Mahdi's trial. He acknowledged that the killer was wearing his coat, but he denied that it was him. He said that he gave the coat to Mahdi Ali and that it was Mahdi who did the crimes, which is a very convenient excuse. But also, Abdi Salan Ali, he knew so many details about the crimes before any of that information went public. He told a friend, a classmate at school the very next day after the killings happened, that he was there, that he killed 3 people, that he had to step over a dead body on his way out of the market, that he took his gun off safety before he shot these people, right? He knew intimate details. Ahmed Ali, the accomplice in the crime, didn't even know these details because he was in the back of the store, so he didn't actually even see the shootings happen, right? So how did this kid, who was also 15 years old, how did he know all these intimate details about this crime? And then we see the day after Mahdi was convicted. So Mahdi was convicted on September 23rd, 2011, more than a year and a half after the murders took place. Abdi Salan went on Twitter the very next day and bragged about killing people. And we included a screenshot directly from Abdi Salan's Twitter page. It's still up. You can follow the link. Again, if you read my investigation on Unicorn Riot, I put a hyperlink in it. You could go read it yourself. Like his tweets are still up online. And so, again, in statements given to the police from his classmate, it was reported, and this is all in the police report, that Abdi Salan, he wanted to frame Mahdi, and he threatened to kill Mahdi in order to protect himself and his cousin. So if he wasn't involved in the crimes, as authorities, said, they absolved him, then why did he want to kill Mahdi? Why did he want to frame Mahdi? And I talked to Mahdi, and Mahdi confirmed this. He heard the rumors that Abdisalan wanted to kill him a day after all this happened, right? And so Mahdi was with Abdisalan and Ahmed earlier that day. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But Mahdi, he said he dropped the two off before, well before these crimes were committed. And so Ahmed Ali, again, who's Abdisalan's cousin, later he recanted his testimony. So he blamed Mahdi Ali in order to get a sweetheart deal. He ended up getting, so he was facing life in prison. He ended up getting sentenced to 18 years, but he got out in 12 years for good time. He was never charged with murder. He was charged with aggravated robbery and did his time. But a year before he was released, he recanted. He said that Mahdi is really innocent and that he was coerced to frame Mahdi. And so I'm just gonna read you a quote. Ahmed Ali, he says, "I was young at the time. I had a lot of people in my ear, like close family, friends to me, closer than Mahdi was at the time. He ended up becoming the scapegoat, I guess. I feel guilty about that because I was protecting somebody else and he ended up taking the fall for something he didn't end up doing." And so we actually, we have a clip of that. We're gonna play for you from the Fox 9 News investigation. And this is featuring Mahdi and Ahmed Ali.
Detectives were already talking to the two teenagers Mahdi was with that night. Mahdi's best friend, Ahmed, and Ahmed's
it's
cousin,
only gonna be like 50
Abdisalan.
seconds, so I think
who is still finishing up a 12-year.
9 seconds.
Give us a minute, let us get the audio situated.
Detectives were already talking to the two teenagers Mahdi was with that night. Mahdi's best friend, Ahmed, and Ahmed's cousin, Abdisalan.
You know what I mean? Not framing each other.
So that's Mahdi,
But rather framing me.
the Fox 9 News reporter from prison.
There is one other person who knows what happened that night, and that is Mahdi's accomplice, Ahmed, who is still finishing up a
So now I
12-year
encourage
prison
everybody
sentence.
to read Fox 9's investigation and watch their short documentary that they did about the case. You can find it on YouTube. It's called "I Am Not the One."
So you your headphones. Let's do it this way. Thank you for your patience again.
I think that's the one thing we forgot to test was this video, test the sound, but.
I am just going to connect. I'm just gonna play the audio over my phone into the microphone. Okay. So this one. How we have. All right, let's do it.
There is one other person who knows what happened that night, and that is Mahdi's accomplice, Ahmed, who is still finishing up a 12-year prison sentence. He had declined to talk to us until today. He's changed his mind. He won't allow us to do this on camera, but he is allowing me to record the conversation. No one promised you anything or gave you money or promised you anything in order to talk to me?
No. Yeah, I feel guilty about that because I was protecting somebody else and he ended up taking the fall for something that he didn't end up doing.
You're telling me that you were not with Mahdi inside the market
He
when
dropped me off. He dropped my cousin off around 6:15, 6:20, and he ended up dropping me off almost 7 o'clock.
Ahmed admits.
So again, that was a statement from Ahmed Ali, who was positively identified as the accomplice. He acknowledged his role, admitted his role in the crimes that happened, and got a sweetheart deal for blaming Mahdi Ali, and later recanted and said he framed Mahdi Ali and he was coerced to do it. So now we're gonna get into the third major point in this case. There was no credible evidence that linked Mahdi to the crimes, right? So there were significant issues with the evidence that was used to convict Mahdi Ali, including police, they ignored all evidence that could have exonerated Mahdi. So the first issue I want to talk about is the alleged blood stain that police claim they found on a pair of Mahdi's jeans. So police raided his home a couple days after the murder, after they arrested Mahdi, and they confiscated a pair of jeans from his apartment. Police had the jeans in custody for 3 months until they allegedly found this blood stain on the jeans. So they confiscated the jeans in January 2010. It wasn't until April 2010 when police came forward with this blood stain, a tiny drop of blood that they said they found on the jeans. And this is corroborated from the police report. Nowhere in the police report is this blood stain mentioned until April 2010. I talked to Mahdi. Mahdi said his case was very close to being dismissed because there was no evidence against him until authorities found this drop of blood on his jeans. And so the problem is with the blood that they allegedly found, it was contaminated with DNA of 4 other people, including a state investigator, right? So the blood, it was a drop of blood from one of the victims from the murder scene at the Seward Market. But Mahdi claims he believes police planted the blood on his jeans. There's no other explanation of how the blood got on his jeans. Mahdi said, why would I get, so police found no other clothing in his home that they claimed were involved in the crime. And Mahdi said, why would I get rid of all my clothing but keep the jeans that I killed these people in? He said, it doesn't make sense. And he's right. It makes absolutely no sense, right? And so there was none of Mahdi's DNA was found at the crime scene, right? And as bloody as the crime scene was, remember, 3 people were murdered. Why did they only find a tiny drop of blood in like the cuff of his jeans? It makes no sense. And so the second point I want to talk about is that there was no evidence in the alleged getaway car, the car that police claim they used to get away after these crimes occurred. So you see there's a red Crown Victoria in the zine, and so that's the car Mahdi was actually driving that day. He borrowed his friend's car, his friend who was his alibi for that day. And Mahdi, like I said, he did pick up Abdi Salan and Ahmed earlier that day. They drove around like teenagers do. They made a few stops, including at the Minneapolis impound lot. And so police, they seized the vehicle. They found absolutely no evidence in the vehicle, inside or outside the vehicle, tying it to the crimes. In fact, they gave the vehicle back to the owner a week later, which is unheard of in murder cases, right? The vehicle, we all know about George Floyd's murder by the Minneapolis police. The vehicle that George Floyd was driving that day is still in police custody. And George Floyd wasn't accused of a murder, right? He was accused of using a fake $20 bill. Police still have that vehicle, right? We're talking about 5 years later. So why did this guy get his vehicle back a week after these murders happened, if it was the getaway car in these crimes? And so the third point, and I think the most important point, is the height discrepancy between Mahdi and the other suspects in this crime, right? So Mahdi Ali, at the time when he was arrested, this is listed on the police report, he was listed as 5 feet 8 inches tall. The accomplice to the crimes, Ahmed Ali, was listed as 6 feet 1 inch tall. And you could see, so on this slide, the red arrow points to Mahdi in these two pictures on the left-hand side. These two pictures are from the stop that they made at the impound lot earlier that day. And you can see Mahdi is drastically shorter than Ahmed. That's Ahmed he's standing next to on that top photograph. Ahmed towers over Mahdi, almost a half a foot. So we're talking about a 5-inch difference between Mahdi and his friend Ahmed. The problem is you don't see that same height difference between the killer and the accomplice. So we got this video running on the right-hand side. So there's 3 clips. So this clip is from the Seward Market. You don't see that drastic height difference between the killer and the accomplice. This clip is from the Minneapolis impound lot. You do see Mahdi is drastically shorter than the other 2. This clip is from a check cashing place that they stopped before the killing. The killer and the accomplice stopped at that check cashing place within an hour before the killings, according to police. They were allegedly trying to rob the check cashing store, but they couldn't, and they went to the Seward Market instead. Again, you don't see a drastic height difference between the killer that first walked through the hall, and then that's the accomplice, right? That evidence alone should have exonerated Mahdi. That should have absolved him. Now, there is a similar height. You see a very similar height between Abdi Salan and his cousin Ahmed. So Abdi Salan, he's listed, I found a police report where he was listed, this was 2013, as 6'1". So in 2010, he might have been a little bit shorter. Well, he testified in court that him and Ahmed were very close in height. He said his cousin Ahmed was about a ½ inch taller than him. That's closer to the height of the killer and the accomplice that we see in the store in that video right there, right? You don't see a drastic height difference. So again, how did police miss that, right? So let's move on. We'll move on to one of the next key points while breaking down this case is about Target's role. Target Corporation, America's beloved retail darling. So 2 Target investigators testified in court against Mahdi Ali on behalf of the state. One of them testified about the height of the killer and said that it was close to Mahdi Ali. Now, this investigator who testified on behalf of Target, later went on to work for the FBI, right? And he was actually working for the FBI when he came back to Minnesota to testify against Ali. So he had already moved on from Target to the FBI when he testified in his trial. And what he said was Mahdi's height was close to the height of the killer from the surveillance video. But under cross-examination, he acknowledged under oath that he could not rule out Mahdi or Abdi Salan as the killers. Sure. Now, the problem is this man is supposedly an expert, but yet he couldn't tell the difference between Mahdi Ali, who was 5'8", and Abdi Salan, who was 4 to 5 inches taller, who stood over 6 feet tall, right? So again, that's a huge discrepancy. There was another Target investigator who testified in court against Mahdi Ali on behalf of the state, and he said that the jeans that police found in Mahdi's home appeared to be similar to the jeans that the killer was wearing in the Seward Market video. Now, under cross-examination, this same guy acknowledged that he can't even tell the color of the jeans from the video. He can only tell if they're light or dark. So how is this expert witness, how's this testimony, how is it found credible, right? And so I talked to Mahdi supporters, and, they believe it was all junk science, that it was Target Corporation's credibility in the community that swayed the court, that swayed the jury to help secure that conviction. It was not science. It was not credible science, that they used to win this case. And so there's some things that people need to know about Target Corporation that most people do not know. So Target Corporation for decades have partnered with law enforcement.
Didn't know that.
Since early 2000s, right? So Target partnered with the city of Minneapolis, Hennepin County Attorney's Office to create a mass surveillance project in downtown Minneapolis that spread to over 24 cities. So Target was not only working as expert witnesses on behalf of the state, but Target was actually funding the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. Target funded the city attorney's office and Target funded the Minneapolis police. Their surveillance project had a hyper focus on Black youth in downtown Minneapolis and homeless populations. In downtown Minneapolis, as most of you all know, that's where Target's global headquarters are. They purchased services from the county and the city to clean up downtown. Target wanted to clean up downtown Minneapolis, so its majority white corporate young professionals would feel safe and feel comfortable in downtown Minneapolis. Now, if you read my 12-part series on Unicorn Riot, you'll see that this was not about public safety. This was not really about public safety objectives, right? There are surveys that are documented where the police are even acknowledging that downtown was way safer than most neighborhoods in Minneapolis. It had a very low violent crime rate, but people felt icky when they saw panhandlers and homeless people on the streets, right? They felt uncomfortable, right? These surveys did not talk about people being victimized or mugged. It was about the sight of poor people in downtown and Black youth, right? And it's not to say there's no crime. Of course, crime happens everywhere, but this was not about public safety. And so, like I mentioned, Hennepin County Attorney's Office was being funded by Target Corporation. So let's turn to the next page and get into the legacy of the Hennepin County Attorney's Office under Amy Klobuchar and Mike Freeman. So for almost 3 decades, these two led the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. And there's a quote from a 2006 Washington Post article where Amy Klobuchar is acknowledging that she received funding from Target Corporation in return for convictions. Not truth, not justice, not public safety. It was about convictions. And when your Hennepin County Attorney's Office is operating under those premises, we understand how we see 200 plus provably innocent people in state prisons, right? So I'm gonna read this quote. Klobuchar, she says, "There were huge strings attached. They don't just give us money, they demand accountability. In the past, the DA's office tracked input numbers, how many criminals were charged. Though once we were working with Target, we were required to track output numbers or how many convictions we get in a year, right? So the funding was attached to convictions.
Yeah.
And Klobuchar, again, in that same article, she acknowledges that office went from 3 convictions a year when it came to locking up repeat offenders to 90 convictions a year. So we're talking about a 30-fold increase, right? The last major point in this case that I want to break down, and I want you guys to open up to this page about the Minneapolis Police's investigation. Everybody here knows how corrupt the Minneapolis police are, right? And we're all aware of George Floyd's murder and the uprising that followed. And folks who are from here know that corruption goes way beyond George Floyd's murder,
Yes,
right?
it does.
We can talk about Jamar Clark's murder.
Yes.
We can talk about Amir Locke's murder. We can talk about Terrence Franklin's murder.
Yeah.
So it should be no surprise to say that the Minneapolis police investigation was bogus, right? That they did not do all they could do to lock up the killer or to free an innocent child, Mahdi. And so, again, they did not secure surveillance video from earlier that day that could have absolved Mahdi. So Mahdi, he had an alibi. His friend whose car he was driving testified in court. I interviewed his friend. And 15 years later, he still stands by Mahdi's innocence. And his friend was very credible. He worked, at the time, he was working at the Riverside Hospital. Mahdi picked him up that evening from work. Mahdi was driving his car, and his friend told me Mahdi picked him up precisely at the time when the killings happened, at about 7:45 p.m. that evening. The killings happened at 7:43, right? And so the Seward Halal Market is about, it's within under a couple miles from the hospital. There's no way you can make that drive in 2 minutes. There's no way it could happen, right? And so there was surveillance video from the hospital that actually showed Mahdi picking up his friend, right? This is documented. However, police never secured the video. They only asked for still images of the video. Now, why wouldn't police ask for the video itself, right? And so instead of showing the video in court, they summoned the security guard who was working at the hospital that night to testify and to basically repeat the police's narrative that Mahdi, police claimed that Mahdi actually picked his friend up at 8:30 that night, which is 45 minutes after the killings happened, right? And so this security guard testified at court, corroborating the police narrative, but he also acknowledged that the security surveillance video from the hospital is 20 minutes off, which means it could have been 20 minutes earlier or 20 minutes later. He didn't specify, but he did acknowledge that the timestamp on the video was not accurate. And so another thing about Mahdi's friend, who was his alibi that night, he still works at the hospital 15 years later. He was a very credible witness. And so let's juxtapose that with Abdi Salon's alibi. Abdi Salon's alibi was full of lies. He lied to the police. He lied on the witness stand about dumb stuff. Like he lied about the time the sun set that day. He said that it was still light outside. This is January 2010 when Mahdi dropped him off at his home around 6 p.m. Anybody who lives in Minnesota knows the sun sets 4:30 in January, right?
Right.
This is documented. And so how was Abdi Salon's alibi found credible? How was he absolved from these crimes? Again, and so the only person who corroborated Abdi Salon's alibi was his mother. So Mahdi had a friend who's not blood related to him, who corroborated his alibi. Abdi Salon, and Mahdi's alibi was solid. Abdi Salon's alibi, who was so full of lies and only corroborated by his mother, was found credible, but Mahdi's wasn't, right? So again, when police were investigating Abdi Salon, they interviewed him 4 times, at least according to the police report. At not one point in that police report did they ask Abdi Salon if he committed the murders. There is no public record of the police asking Abdi Salon if he actually killed those 3 people in the Seward Market. So if Minneapolis police did ask him, where is the record of it? That should be public, right? Lastly, I just want to point out that during the very first interview with Abdi Salon, he interestingly told police, one of the first things he said was he wanted to be a cop when he got older. Now, what's even more interesting about it is Abdi Salon's brother is a commander in the Minneapolis Police Department today. He actually made headlines about 2 years ago. He was the first Somali cop who was promoted to be a commander in the Minneapolis Police Office, the Minneapolis Police Department. And so he joined the force just months after Mahdi was convicted. So I would imagine he was probably recruited much earlier than that to work for the Minneapolis Police Department. One thing we know is that his family has a lot of close connections to the police. He has another older brother who was a cop as well. I have not been able to confirm if he worked for Minneapolis or another local jurisdiction, but I talked to several community members and Mahdi who knew his brothers, right? So again, you know, the evidence pointed to another killer. There was evidence that could have absolved Mahdi Ali that was never secured by the police. You know, the witnesses that testified against Mahdi at the trial had incentives to blame Mahdi Ali. This goes beyond sloppy police work. Mahdi was framed. Mahdi was framed by the same authorities that are charged with protecting our children. And again, I encourage everybody to read my report. I break down 27 issues. We only went over 6 of the most pressing issues here, but you can find that report at www.unicornriot.ninja. And so, again, we gave a shout out to Cam Gordon earlier. Cam Gordon, he is the former council member who represented Ward 2, which is the ward where the Seward Market was, where these killings happened. And many years later, Cam Gordon, after my investigation dropped last year, after Fox 9 News investigation was published a few years back, Cam Gordon, he no longer believes Mahdi is guilty. I mean, he's calling for a new trial. And I just want to read this statement that he gave to us for publishing. He says, "I was the neighborhood city council member at the time of the tragic triple murder at the Seward Market on January 6, 2010. One of the most horrific and sad events that has ever occurred in my neighborhood. I remember well the outrage, fear, and activism that followed the violent deaths. I also recall the pressure on local officials, including me, to help hold those responsible accountable, and the relief many felt after the trial and conviction of Mahdi Ali, who was a teen and a high school student in Minneapolis public schools at the time. Many of us, myself included, hoped and assumed that justice had prevailed when Mahdi was convicted and sentenced to life, but now I believe we may have gotten it wrong. Serious, legitimate questions are being raised about the investigation. In 2021, the accomplice in the crimes and the state's key witness said he lied to the police and Mahdi is really innocent. As painful as it might be to open those wounds again, I believe that a new trial is needed. Our local, county, and state criminal justice officials need to give it their most serious and careful consideration." And I just want to share this call to action. This is a quote from Mahdi. He joined us at our very first info session in December from Rush City Correctional Facility. And Mahdi, you know, what he said was very moving. It made myself and many others very emotional. He said, "Fight for me. I would urge you guys to invest in me and invest in me more than today. I want to come home and make sure that this doesn't happen to another kid in our community. I want to invest my life into eradicating these issues like that, so our children don't ever have to worry about going to prison for a crime they didn't commit." And one thing you all should know about Mahdi is that he's a star prisoner. He's an exemplary prisoner. He's a leader. He's a mentor to the younger guys in prison. He was a tutor for many years. And I've heard nothing. I've talked to other prisoners who were locked up with him. I've heard nothing but glowing things about Mahdi. There's no doubt if Mahdi was released today, he would be an asset to our communities. And I have no doubt that if Mahdi was tried again today, he would be found innocent. No doubt, 100%. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for going over that so extensively, MJ. Yeah, so what we are hoping all of you will do is like take some of these zines and just share it with folks. It's important that we're getting Mahdi's story out there. I worked at South for the last 4.5 years, and I didn't hear about this story until MJ started working there and shared his reporting with me. And so that means that it's kind of like on us to keep spreading this around so that we can get Mahdi free. What I want to do now is I want to ask Brenda Johnson and Marvina Haynes to come up and join our roundtable over here. We're going to have a brief discussion about the school to prison pipeline. We are going to have Isaac. Would you mind going back like 6 slides maybe? One more. Yeah. So Mahdi is he hasn't been able to call yet. Sometimes things happen. If he does call in, we're going to make sure that you get to hear from him. I hope that he's able to call in during this roundtable because I think without him, we're going to be missing a voice that's really important to this conversation. But we have 2 incredibly qualified folks here that have been in the struggle for a long time, and I will have them introduce themselves briefly. I just may have adjust mic levels as we go. Grab that one and bring it towards you. Just do a mic test. You speak.
Mic test 1, 2.
And can you talk like we're at a comfortable area for you? Like if you're going to be sitting there just for
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Perfect. All right. And then Brenda, can I have you do the same thing
Sure.
on your microphone, please?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Awesome. So it's gonna be I'm gonna just take these off there so that the only let's see, we got that one's going on. This. So just the ones that are lit up as on air are the ones that might need to be adjusted up or down. And I'm going to, all right, hello. No, got one. There we go. All right, so thanks for bearing with us for that again. Marvina and Brenda, would you just take a moment to introduce yourselves, tell us about you know, whatever, how maybe your relation to Mahdi, how you know Mahdi, and just what kind of important work you've done on this type of wrongfully incarcerated work, school to prison work, anything like that.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Marvina Haynes. I am the founder of Minnesota Wrongfully Convicted Judicial Reform. I'm also a current candidate for Minneapolis Ward 4. Also, along with that, I'm the sister of Marvin Haynes, who was wrongfully incarcerated for 19 years. Minneapolis police also kidnapped my brother at the age of 16. I learned about Mahdi's story because I founded the organization, and then he had reached out to me. When he first reached out to me, I was kind of new to the word because I had thought that this type of act had only happened to my family. And so when I learned about Mahdi's case, I tried to advocate for him, but one of the disadvantages that he had was the whole way that he ended up in America, and that his family wasn't currently here to advocate for him. And so the way our organization work is we work with love family members to advocate and to use our platform to uplift these stories. And so as I was fighting for my brother, I kind of like lost track of Mahdi's story. I was still speaking with him over the phone, but there wasn't much that I can do for him because I was fighting for my brother at that time. And I couldn't tell his story because it's his family story to tell. And so all of a sudden, Nicholas reached out to me, and I was just, I thought it was a call from heaven because I had prayed for Mahdi, and I was praying that someone stepped up to advocate for him. And I knew that it wasn't right just because he didn't have family here to leave him stuck in a system where he didn't belong. As MJ and Nicholas spoke, during this time, the school to prison pipeline, it also was the tough on crime act that they were doing. So they were like picking kids up for curfew, all of those things. And so I am grateful to everyone who's here today, listening to Mahdi's story. This is what community looks like. And I'll pass it over to Brenda because I'll talk all day.
Say his name.
Mahdi Ali.
Say his name.
Mahdi Ali.
Say his name.
Mahdi Ali.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you, to you who showed up this morning at, 11 o'clock, to do this work. It is not easy. It is not easy work. So I want to say thank you to the people that showed up today, and especially the white people, okay? As you know, my name is Brenda Johnson. I am a transition specialist at Stadium View School. I've been in the district for many years. I've been in this facility for 17 years. I'm a product of Minneapolis Public Schools and also the north side of Minneapolis. You don't meet very many Black women that are my age that are native Minnesotans. So I'm over 50, I'm over 55. That's all you guys do. So I'm proud, to say that, one of the things that I've learned now, in playing the game as we, deal with the oppressive systems, is that we have to lead in a different way now. And that way must mean we have to understand Minnesota. We have to understand Minneapolis. Minnesota nice is not Minnesota nice. And most of us know that. So my work, is mostly in the prison system. I am a minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, under the direction of the 4th Episcopal District of the annual conference. Many of you all know, you may relate to this, and as I was getting brought up to date on this work, Jamal Bryant is my minister. Well, he came from the same organization. He is on loan at New Birth Baptist Church in Atlanta, but he is leading the initiative in terms of, we're not shopping at Target right now. So we might want to partner with Jamal, and I have some thoughts about that. Also, my love is for children. My love is for the children of Minneapolis, Black, white, purple, or pink, but it's for the underdog, the ones that don't have the voice. I do remember Mahdi. I think I was just getting to Stadium View School. I do remember him. So anyway, I want to say thank you. To whom much is given, much is required. I raised a Black male that stands 6'4". His name is Malik. He's now 30. I am divorced, and I raised a daughter too. She's 32. It wasn't easy. It was not easy, but there was a requirement that I had. And anytime you have an interaction with the police, you say nothing. Any kind of interaction, you say nothing. Now, mind you, we had 2 police officers in my family, and then a couple that I grew up with on the north side, but the requirements were still the same. So with that being said, I am an NEA director, so I sit on the National Education Board, the National Educator Association Board. I'm also the 2nd vice president of MFT, Local 59. I sit on the Education Minnesota Governing Board, and those things matter, but what matters is the work on the ground. Are you willing to lay your life on the line for justice, right? So I ask myself that question as I examine my walk. Am I willing to lay my life on the line for what is right for our kids? I oftentimes say in our facility, when I work with parents and I work with our staff and the Hennepin County naysayers, the profiteers, I say that I will always lean to the side of the student because I am that voice that they don't have while visiting. I'm not going to say incarcerated, but it's a precursor to incarceration where I work. So with that said, somebody else's turn.
That's actually perfect timing. We've got Mahdi on the line. Mahdi, can you say something?
Yes. Yes.
Buddy, how y'all doing?
Hi, Marty. Miss Brenda.
Hi.
Brenda, how you doing?
Yes.
Hearing your voice. And I want to take a little, moment to actually, dive into your background and the life that you touched being a Brenda Johnson. Everybody, I want you guys to know, I can't see the audience, but it's not like we have, good number of audience in the crowd. And I want you guys to learn and understand about Brenda Johnson. It's the reason why they have an education in Hennepin County detention center. Like when you get certified as an adult, Brenda Johnson is way before her time. Like she was doing good work and investing in kids way beyond what Minneapolis were known for what it is right now. And she was one of those individuals that used to go to juvenile justice centers. Her and brother named Corey. I remember vividly, man, like they used to come in every Friday and they were the only individuals that could actually, interact with us in a form and fashion where we as black kids that didn't have position during that time, adults that could talk to us normally and could actually tell us what we need and get through it at a stage where we were lost. So it's crazy, man, like, me fighting for justice today, reconnect us together and it's stunning. And I just want to, before I even get into anything, man, I want you guys to applaud for Ms. Brenda Johnson. Brenda Johnson. The reason why I got my GED today, my high school diploma today, because of the work that she did. Thank you. With that being said, I want to thank everybody in the crowd for taking their time to join us today, for being here for me today, and invested in my search for justice. I want to thank Mr. Nick, Mr. MJ, Mr. Isaac for setting it and making it possible today. I want to thank individuals like Marjaan who, constantly, stay in our community and find ways to, highlight the injustice that exists in our community and in our children in a fashion, in a form where every day it seems like, they're slipping out of our hands and landing in prison at a high rate in Minneapolis. So, with that being said, man, where do I start? I want to start by saying I'm innocent. I want to start by saying, what happened to me is tragic. What happened to me, and what I heard in itself, in that senseless crime that happened at night, it's tragic. Justice and the criminal system, especially, and actually, let's think about Minneapolis in itself, Minnesota in itself. To certain people, justice just has no meaning. It's long. Some people, get incarcerated, and it became actually money generating revenue where like people just, freedom in people's lives and, something was stepping stone where certain people careers started getting built, where certain people careers, they were made out of, innocent people and just prison system and things of that nature, happen. And with that being said, man, I fall victim to that. And the sad thing about my story is, and this is something that I never forget, till this day, honestly, that day, I'm only guilty of not going to school that day. And far enough, like when you tell a kid, hey, go to school, you know what I mean? And I don't always tell kids, hey, are you in school? Stay in school, go to school. Kids don't know the meaning of that,
they see school as a place where it's just difficult to be, and some kids, they just not a school kids, you know what I mean? Like education doesn't compete to them. And they have a learning disability. You know, and I was part of that. I was one of those kids that education didn't get easy for me. English was my second language. And I do believe now that I'm an adult and I dived into the background of learning disabilities. At the time, I do believe I had a learning disability. And I felt like I was out of place. So, you know, and not only that, being a homeless teen during times and certain stages of my youth, you know, also added just, you know, the accountability of being in space scope. And you know, but looking back, I wish I stayed in school that day. I wish I went to school that day. Not going to school that day truly cost me my freedom. The time where, you know, I was seen with the individuals, you know, that commit that crime. Had I stayed in school, had I went to school that day, I would have been with those individuals. I would have been seen with those individuals. Rather, I would have been in school, being a kid, you know, snow day, probably would have been playing snowball at the stop bus. I mean, right around the school bus area. You know, being a kid, that probably would have been the position I would have been in had I not, you know, skipped school that day. So the message of that today, like having a lot of teachers in my background that are supporting me, you know, that's something that I always, you know, reiterate. Staying in school and staying in school, and the meaning of staying in school, it means way more than just, you know, being in school. Staying in school gives you a place to be, shelter. School is way more than just what it is, and it's so much more than just what it's done, like what it is, and it shelters our kids, and it kicks our kids off the street. So, man, if there is any kids in the crowd today, I want to advise you to stay in school, man. Even, you know, when it's a difficult day, just remember, man, being in school is way more than just going to school. And it's something that can actually save you from tragic events or, you know, getting in trouble. And that, with that being said,
You have 1 minute remaining.
I will call you guys back, gentlemen. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, give me a second.
Sounds good.
Thank you for using GTL.
So, yeah, Mahdi will, call back soon. We'll hop him in, but, let's get started with just, talking about what we are, like the topic of our roundtable. Isaac, can you go back about 6 or 7 slides to our, this one? So how I kind of just want to start this is I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about what the school to prison pipeline is. And so I'm going to present a like starting point, and then the first question I want to throw to you two is, are there any like additional dimensions we should add to our definition as we're talking about it in this space? So our starting point is the school to prison pipeline is when kids, especially Black, Latino, Indigenous, and disabled students, get pushed out of school and into jail because of unfair rules and punishments. Is there anything that either of you would add to this definition that you think people in the audience should know? If there is, great, we can just make sure we're all on the same page.
I think that sounds good. It sums up exactly what's happening. We know all about the root cause, and so, yeah, I think that's good.
I do not refer to it as the school to prison pipeline. It's actually the cradle to the prison pipeline. We know that the precursor for kids that are in Head Start, when you get there, at 3 years old, there's supposed to be a reading assessment that happens. How much do you know? Then when you get to the 3rd grade, if you're not reading, that is a precursor for special education. Okay? So as I define that word school to prison, it's actually for me, the cradle to the prison pipeline. And if we do our research around the Pew research and all the things that it says about Black and brown and indigenous students, it points to the cradle.
I know that there was a new study and it kind of talked about how women are having babies. It has extended to birth to prison. And so when you said that, that's what it put me in the mind for.
Absolutely. If you look at the rate of Black women that do not, Black, brown, and indigenous women that do not have access to the resources that is needed when they're pregnant, those are precursors. Already the kid is set up before they even are here. So the cradle to the prison pipeline, there's some kind of way we could add that in there. It would be great.
Absolutely, and yeah, thank you for adding the dimension to it. I think that's very helpful. I think everyone here has probably heard of the school to prison pipeline. Extending that out is gonna be important for our conversation. So moving on, the first question that we want to ask is just, what are the impacts on families and communities when young people are incarcerated rather than educated? And how do we see those effects in the Twin Cities?
I think when a child is impacted, it doesn't just affect that child, it affects the whole community. And it brings generational trauma, economic hardships, and the loss of potential that the child could have brought to the community. In the Twin Cities, it is, the data is clear. Black youth are disappointingly disciplined, suspended, and funneled into juvenile detention centers. That leads to lower graduation rates, increased poverty, and fractures neighborhoods. The ripple effects hurt us all. And so it's not just affecting the child. We are erasing generations by sending these children to prison. And we are just not giving them any hope. I'm a product myself. I'm born and raised right here in North Minneapolis. So I have been through a lot of the schools, Bethune, North Star, Sheridan, just to name off a few. Franklin was my middle school. I went to North, but then I moved to City Inc. But it was just some disconnect, even for myself, as I was going through the school system here. And then after my brother was ripped out of the home, that mentally affected my parents, into where eventually they ended up separating. And so it lays layers and layers of acute trauma onto families. There's a lot of funding that goes out, but it still isn't enough to what we need to see inside of the Minneapolis public schools. And so I'm a big advocate for things like stable homes, stable schools. That program is great, but they really need to be able to receive a lot of more funding to not only make sure the kids are staying in the house, but also having accesses to like mental health, internship programs, a lot of the things that were coming around when I was coming up, but then it's just like they all disappeared. And so that's what I think.
Thank you, so well said. I don't know if you all know, but I have a small nonprofit. After George Floyd, it was critical for me to begin to do the work in terms of what happens in the first 30 seconds of a police stop. I have a small nonprofit that did some work training some police officers and the community. I would pair community people up with officers. We won't talk about that now, but one of the things that we must understand is the history of policing.
Yes.
It goes back to the paddy rollers. The paddy rollers were, it was on the slave plantation. They were hired to oversee the runaway slaves. Right? So we have to understand that it just didn't start. This is intrinsic. It's a systems issue. We have to change the way on how we police in the 21st century, okay? I'm not sure if I can answer that question fairly. I can tell you in terms of my time here on this earth and what has happened in my tenure in terms of how we work with families, they're devastating. Our families are devastating. When one kid gets arrested, it doesn't just start at the arrest, but it starts at all the stuff. You all know what the stuff is. The racial profiling, the getting suspended and expelled. All of these things are precursor to the cradle to the prison pipeline. It's devastating to the family. First of all, in Minnesota, you know, we're looking at a lot of households that are women, are head of household. Fathers, a lot of our fathers are not there, or some of our fathers are already incarcerated. And so when I say it's not only, it started a long time ago with the patty rollers. If there's one thing that you do, my white sisters and brothers in this room, understand the history of policing and understand the history in Minnesota and the North Star. Where were all those things? It's in housing. It's in jobs, it's economic justice, it's in systems of oppression. Study to show yourself approved as you do this work.
Thank you for touching on that, because when you just speak so, fine, and especially when you touch on history, like, because I'm a city council, candidate,
Yes.
I steady hear people in my head and say, don't say it like that. But the way that you bring in the story, it makes me like, relive it all, because you touch on it the right way. The way that we see it in the movement is there's more than one way to lynch a man. You can kill him dead in the street, like what we have seen with the George Floyd and the Ricky Cobbs, or you can send them to prison for crimes that they didn't commit.
Absolutely.
And so thank you for that, sister.
Thank you very much for those really insightful answers. I think, let's see, let's go to go back one. I think the next one that we want to just ask about, and if you have any ideas, great. If not, we can move to a different question. But what alternatives to youth incarceration exist in Minnesota? And are there any successful models in other states that you know of that we look to as a model to duplicate here?
I'll go for it. First of all, we put the pressure on the powers that be, starting with our county commissioners, Paul Snell. They have dismantled a couple programs in Boys Totem Town. There was some success with that program. They've closed the county homeschool. And that's a big, beautiful building that could be used for some of our homeless families. And it's sitting out there. I don't think there's any use for it right now. It's sitting out there empty. And it really continues to make me very upset. But we have to follow the money. We have to be at the legislature at all times. Some people may say that's not my thing, but we gotta be in the places where it meets, where it makes a difference at. Pressure on Paul. So what's happening to that building out there? Many years ago, we had a partnership in Arizona, in Maricopa County, on how they did incarceration in a short-term secure facility. In Minnesota, under the direction of Larry Lucio, he was the first Latino principal in the state of Minnesota. We started, before he retired, to create a model in Minneapolis, how we would do schooling in a short-term secure facility. We were the first detention center to do freedom school. We did freedom school for 10 years in Hennepin County Detention Center, and it worked. We were very selective on who we would hire. Now, the district now is not, they don't understand the word, nor our word. It takes a special person to be in the Hennepin County Detention Center on the school side to work with our students. We not only want them to succeed academically, because we don't really want to get into their cases, but we want to say what we know is that you graduate from high school, you got a chance. If we can build some support in the community after you get out. We know that if a kid comes into juvenile detention center 3 times or more, the likelihood of our students going to the penitentiary becomes 90%. We know that the juvenile detention center is very transit, and it's set up for a reason. There's not a lot of programming on the Hennepin County side right now. Sometimes, in order to be effective, you got to work from the outside in. But I'll be damned. I'm putting my body on the line and my life on the line now, because I'm all up in there. We have an interim person that doesn't know our work, an interim principal. We, as educators, handle the shit during the academic day. And that's loving and holding that child, and there's no judgment. And so, resource, follow the money. We got to get to the powers that be, sit at the tables where they say that you can't sit, get there, push our way in, parents and community and white folks and black folks and brown folks. We got to be at the table where the decisions are made.
Thank you again. I can listen to you speak all day. I believe that Minnesota has diverse programs and community-based initiative like youth restorative circles and mentorship initiatives, but they are underfunded. States like California and Missouri has had success rates with fully replacing youth prisons with small community-based treatment centers focusing on healing, education, and family uniting. We must be built on those models here. So we must look at what's happening there in some of the worst places like Missouri, where that's like the murder capital. And if they can create models that's successful there, we should look at those same models and see how we can adopt them and bring them in here. And so that's what I have for that.
Oftentimes, the question I ask is, do we deal with the crime first, or do we deal with the part that the mental health and the healing? Is the crime, did that mental health allow me to commit the crime? The question I asked oftentimes are our psychologists, what kind of freaking assessment are you doing? We have not yet, as parents and providers, got to the root cause of this. Are they stealing because they're homeless and hungry? Absolutely.
Yes.
Are they bringing guns and carrying guns and cars because of what? Because they're afraid. If you see the crime, it's black and brown on crime. It's stealing cars for the parts for money. It's all of the above. It's resources. I can say, and we can talk about mentorship, but until we deal with the family as a whole, the head of the household, and what the needs are of that caregiver, we're gonna be going round in circles.
That's true. And so that's the root cause, the poverty that most of us are suffering to, which makes folks have to, you don't have to, but if I'm hungry and there's a store and I see a chicken, I'm gonna wanna eat too. And so it's like, that's what causes a lot of the crime. And so that's what I have been seeing and what has been subjected to living in this community. Another thing is African Americans, because we were descendants of slavery, a lot of us, we have adapted this culture because a lot of us don't know exactly who we are. So when we think about schooling, we have to use cultural based economics for the children to identify the real root cause and understand who they are, because a lot of folks are lost. And so if I don't know who I am, then I don't know where I'm going in life. So that goes back to like the slavery and the whole reason why the prison system was actually built. Another thing they did was with the money, when they started to give those kids, a lot of parents, when I was growing up, Social Security came out and they were forcing the kids to take Ritalin. If you gave your child this Ritalin, the family can receive an income to be able to help sustain their bills. But then the school, on the flip side, they were getting $30,000 off of each kid who had these IEPs. And so when that happened, all of the Black kids from our community, we seen the mamas standing in line because they all needed the extra income to be able to raise their family. And so when those type of programs are put in place, it only builds more of cradle to prison pipeline, because now they're not actually looking at the kid and what it actually needs. It's more of a money system.
Thank you so much for your answers and your thoughts. We have Mahdi back on the line, and I think we're gonna make our last question that we ask. I kind of want to direct this towards Mahdi first, because every time I've talked to Mahdi, it's always been, I want to get free so I can help. And I want to, Mahdi, if our tech's working correctly, the question that we have for you and the rest of the panel is, how can youth leadership be centered in efforts to disrupt the school to prison pipeline? Or how can students themselves and their teachers, adults around them, give youth the tools they need to keep themselves safe, healthy, happy?
So, first of all, in our communities where in our Black and brown communities specifically, where we lack in leadership right now is male side of the community. We need our fathers, our brothers, and the husband, to take accountability and to lead the household. One thing that's clear, and it's something that I studied throughout my years of being incarcerated. Like almost every Black male in America that's successful today, whether it's an athlete, whether it's a celebrity, whether it's well-educated individuals, most of them, not all, most of them, what they have in common is two-parent household. And more importantly, a father that was there, that tutelage them every step of the way. So that's something that our youth specifically, that's touched by it. And that's something that if we have that as a household, and you have a father that's gonna hold you accountable, it's rare for you to, see that father figure from outside. Speaking of my own experience and so many other individuals that's incarcerated with me right now that are friends of mine, one thing that when we talk about our childhood and upbringing that come out most of the time is like how they were lacking male role models. So that's something that's valuable, and that's something important. It starts with that. But we all know, that's not something that's, gonna be there every day and every time, and every household and every kid don't have that in our community. It's rare to come across actually a kid that has a two-parent household. And most of the kids are from single mother household where the mother is stressed out, working hard to provide for her kids. And she has to work tirelessly just to, provide, and at the same time, she has to take care of herself and find a little time to, be there for herself as well. And that right there, where we've fallen short at. So in our community, something that could disrupt, the pipeline, the school to prison pipeline that, a lot of people build career out of is, building mentorship, building well-established programs that kids, that get involved in kids' lives, especially our young boys' lives in our community at a very young age. And male figures that the kids know genuinely that has their best interest at heart. And I know I can speak for myself. Had I had that, I would have been in a position. You know what I mean? Had I had a male role model that, hold me accountable. And also, you know what I mean, pat me on the back and tell me, hey man, you did good today. Something as small as that can make a difference at times. And not having that, can also be detrimental to a kid at times. Because he's gonna take that from a place that's not that doesn't provide that. At least positively. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're gonna pat you on your back, but they're not gonna pat you on your back for doing something good. Rather it's gonna be something that's violent or something that, benefits them to their advantage. That's somewhat of, breaking a law. And so the things that always been like, one thing that I know that all these years helped me, get my head above water is the love that I have in me. And more importantly, man, the service that I want to do for my community, so another kid doesn't find himself in a position which I have, or another kid doesn't come sufficient to a place shortage in the guidance or the male role models that I place that came short on my end. And I believe, man, like all these things I experienced and went throughout the years, it was God, preparing me for that moment and preparing me for one day, man, to be strong for my community and save many lives possible in our kids, in our youth, and in our communities and stuff. And the things that even to this day, man, every day, I come across a individual or two that, just lost, that just got into the prison system, or just came to the facility and, they stick out like a sore thumb and they just looking around, looking confused. And I never shy away from, lending a helping hand or at least hit them, letting them know, hey, how can I help you? Like, you just got here, like, what do you need? This how this thing go, this way the dinner time is, this where you guys come out. Little things like that make a difference. And that same way goes for the community too, in our kids. When our kids at that stage where like they stick out like a sore thumb and everybody's noticing them as, kids that could go either way, to the left or to the right. I want to be there and, let them know. Hey, this is what you need to do. This is something that you can get better in. This is how you need to do. And that in itself, we need more male figures that are thinking like that. And like Marvina said, just to cut it short, they do go back to, the history of this country and the slavery years and the system in itself. This is something that has been working. This is well-oiled machine that was perfected to hold us back, and to limit us from reaching our full potential. And the things that were targeted for years in the history of this country is not killing, but attacking the minority male. So the women are left, to carry the burden.
Thank you for using GTL. If I could say something, if that's
please.
okay, as we refer to the pipeline, I refer to it as the cradle to the prison pipeline. Number one, We must teach and train our children about arrest. What happens when you get arrested? We need to teach our students about the justice system. No justice, no peace. Is this a fair system? We must tell the truth in all aspects. In terms of leadership, youth leadership, maybe we create a model where it's train the trainers, where we teach our students about arresting, getting arrested. Number one, do not get arrested. In my, the work that I do outside of here, what happens in the first 60 seconds of a traffic stop? If you're profiled, what do? You know what I mean? And so we teach those things. I would say our youth are the best teachers and they can teach each other, but they have to learn first. Do not get arrested. Because if a kid is arrested, 70% of the time, they are gonna go to the penitentiary. If you start getting that one time, 2 times, 3 times, you're gonna be gone. That's what the research says. Arrested and then funneled into the juvenile justice system. Our students need to know about this system. How to continue to, you say disrupt, interrupt and disrupt. It is our moral responsibility and our civic duty to be about this business. I don't care if you're not an educator, but you have to know it. We're living in some real tough, difficult times, and it's gonna get worse.
Thank you for that. We've got Mahdi on the line one more time. Mahdi, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind kind of just after you finish sharing whatever message you want, we're gonna kind of direct people to the different ways that they can support your our campaign for your exoneration. Is there anything that you can share with us to kind of, you know, a call to action for the folks in the room?
I'm back, everybody.
Hey, Marty.
I'm thinking here.
I don't think he heard first.
Hey, Mahdi, did you hear that question that I asked?
I was doing something. Can you repeat that, please?
Yep, no problem. We're just, we're about to wrap up this segment before we, kind of introduce the next steps for folks in this room to help join the campaign for your freedom. Is there anything that you want to say, just knowing that we're going to be getting into some, concrete steps to support you here?
Yeah, definitely, man. I just want to keep it short and simple and you know, everything, I believe everything that you invest in time in, you want to see invest doing your investment back. You know, or you want to invest those time in something worth investing in. And I'm someone worth investing in because I want to invest back in our community. And everything that I learned, everything that I experienced, whether good or bad, those lonely nights, those difficult days, all of those, I never made it about myself, and I never more importantly, you know, looked at it to make, you know, be that much weak. It only strengthened me to think more about how this was built to, you know, continue to be something that could reoccur over and over and over to our communities and our children. And the thing that I did with my experience is, you know, I learned how to get better at, you know, not allowing this to occur again. And everything that I learned throughout the years, you know, is the reason why God chose me. And you know, through prayers, you know, I'm still standing, and now more than ever, I believe in my time is coming. And with that being said, man, like I want you guys, it takes you guys to get me out of this position. It takes you guys fighting for me. It takes each and every one of you guys that's in this room right now and so many other people that will join us in the future to really, you know, get me out of this position. So our kids, you know, can benefit from all the things that I experienced throughout the year. And investing in me today, man, is something that you reinvest in your community. And I want to be a pillar of the community, and I want to help and inspire, hope, and create change in so many kids' lives in our community. And that's really what I'm about at heart. And today, man, like, my call to action is, you know, I'm asking all of you guys to help me so I can help our future children, you know, traveling down the path again.
Thank you for those words, Mahdi. I want to pass it back over to Marvina really briefly.
I just want to talk a little bit about the question, how can youth leadership be centered? I think that youth are not just affected by the school to prison pipelines, they are experts on it. We must create space for their voices to be, we must create space for their voices to be able to lead in conversations from school boards to city councils. That means funding youth-led organizations, put young people in leadership roles and trust their visions. It's about power, and youth and young people deserve to have it. Another thing is, a lot of you guys are educators here. We have to start looking at the curriculum in the beginning of the school year. And when we identify things that we can change ourselves, we have to start changing them. The second piece to this is the 13th Amendment. Amen. When we think about history and how that plays a role, the 13th Amendment talks about how if a person commits a crime, that they go back to slavery. Right now, we see them using that same act against the immigrant community. But we all know that that language was written into the Constitution for a specific people, which is my people. And so keeping all that in mind, we have to teach our youth about voting, because that's what got us this far, and also centering their voices and listening to them. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you so much, Marvina. And so that's going to wrap up our roundtable section. If everyone could give a round of applause to Mahdi, Brenda, and Marvina, our folks on the panel. We're getting near the end of our session here. We're gonna have a just like our campaign kickoff, where we're gonna have some next steps. But we first just wanted to briefly give Monique Cullors-Dottie, from co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota, as well as one of the co-organizers of the nationwide Target boycott.
Before she gets started, I want to just hear maybe one or two words as we close this out from our people that are here. These are the people that are going to do the work. I want to just hear maybe one or two, just quick, just whatever you feel in this space, in this time, maybe 2 words as we close out after she gets done.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And while Monique is coming up, I just want to give a big round of applause for Monique, because she was one of the first queens who brought me into the platform to be able to speak about my brother. For 17 years, folks was not listening to me, and Monique brought me in, and I felt the force of energy, and she is one of the reasons why I'm sitting here today. And so give it up for my girl.
You know, I truly believe in not having a selfish platform, and our platform that we have is to help build somebody else's platform. And I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. Absolutely am, as well as all the organizers of this event and those who are standing 10 toes down for Mahdi.
Yeah.
I think all the stars have aligned perfectly for us to get Mahdi out of prison and to show his innocence. I think about the way that many of us, we went to Amy Klobuchar's home campaign and we got up and we protested to free Marjaan Burrell. And we took over that stage, right?
Yep.
It just perfectly aligned with that. And I think we have the same thing with the Target boycott. And I'm so appreciative of all the research that has been done. I'm so thankful that Mahdi has not given up on himself, given up on the opportunity of him to be free, and most of all, he's not giving up on us on the outside who hear his story. So I believe that the Target boycott, which we started, we kicked it off here February 1st. There are multiple organizations that have also started various boycotts against various companies that are rolling back their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. So we stand in solidarity with all them. We appreciate the variety of tactics. No big eyes and little U's.
Yes.
We're all doing this, and the amazing thing is that so many people, just as individuals, right? We're putting on social media, like, I'm boycotting this, and you know, people are saying, like, we are not going to fund our own oppression.
That part.
And it's time that we need to make these companies stand up for the principles of DEI.
Yeah.
And there are some that are, like Costco hears a lot about it. There are some law firms that are standing up for it. So for the companies that are refusing to bow down, the universities that are refusing to bow down and remove DEI from their programming and their recruiting, you know, that's what we need. And as individuals, what we do is we hold back our dollars. And so here we're focusing on Target because we are the ones most impacted by the murder of George Floyd, which really initiated Target to elevate the DEI programming that they have and to invest in people of color and people who have historically been marginalized, like women and veterans and disabled people as well. So DEI really touches almost everybody, you know, and LGBTQ. So there are so many people who are being impacted by the rollback of DEI because our in places of employment and our education systems should look like the communities, right, in which they are planted.
Amen.
There should be space for everyone. And with DEI, it is so important because people can feel isolated when they feel like they're the only one with their similar trait at their job, but there's only a few, and it gives opportunities, right? For people to come together and to support one another, even in the workplace. It means that employers are seeking out people from specific backgrounds. They're recruiting specifically to area that will target the type of people that will create a diverse employment opportunity, right? So we say all that to say it's important. And the Target went back on that and the billions of dollars that they were going to invest in the community. So what I've come to learn from the research is that Mahdi Ali is a victim of Amy Klobuchar's reign of terror as the Hennepin County prosecutor.
Yeah.
In which she increased the incarceration rate for Black boys and men by 600%. I believe it's estimated there's about 200 people left in prison who are still victims of Amy Klobuchar. And what we see in our system, we have basically a two-party system, which are both capitalists. Capitalists will always put money before people. So in this two-party system, what we have seen is the denial of truth. We saw that with Maya Burrell, who got out, but yet his record wasn't cleared. He was, he served enough time. We think he served enough time, he can get out. But that's not what should have happened. That's not what justice looks like.
That's right.
Right? He should have been issued a full apology. He should have been cast out appropriately, and he should have had his record clear. It should be made loud and clear.
That's right.
But that's not what happens in these situations. But we got to make sure that for Mahdi Ali, that's what happens because there is an opportunity here in terms of liability, I believe, for a lawsuit against Target specifically. So it takes it outside the realm of just Hennepin County, right? And now we're going after Target. We're going after for-profit corporations. You're talking about deep pockets, right?
Deep pockets.
This is where I see that there's a difference. I believe he could even start a lawsuit against Target while he's still in prison. So I also learned recently that attorneys can't get the same fees when they represent people who are incarcerated as they do outside, which is really crazy, right? So let's hope this settlement would be large enough that we can attract an attorney who's willing to stand 10 toes down and get something going against Target. So I think there's many different avenues, but as a Black Lives Matter leader, you know, we hit the streets. This is protest season. It's warming up, right? We are going to be boots on the ground for Mahdi Ali. So we will be, shutting some things down, stopping some.
Yeah.
And creating some more awareness about Mahdi Ali's case, you know, on a national level. So, I just want, Mahdi, if you can hear me, I just want you to be encouraged by what is happening here. And I do believe this is what it looks like when the stars align. So thank you so much for having me here at this conference. Thank you so much. This zine is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Monique, not to cut you off, but I just wanna add
That's
one
fine.
brief sentence to what you just said. So when I got arrested, it was 2010. As everybody knows,
You have 1 minute.
cameras running in a court system like it is today, in this day and age. In the era we in, where cameras are everywhere, and every court system has, video enhancement experts. Back in the day, the only thing that was there was literally no one. And Target seeing that as an opportunity to play a video enhancement in my case. My case was a high profile case in the state of Minnesota. The judge that allowed him to play that role was a judge that was already funded by their office. But I want you guys to know, after my conviction, which they play a major role in by playing a video enhancement expert and testified against me, after my conviction, they used my case as a poster child. And today, Target all across the country, they are known for video enhancement experts and
Thank you for using GTL.
And so something I've also said is that Target needs to use their expertise, stop helping the police and start helping the community and stolen lives.
Right.
So absolutely, they have it back. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monique. I really wish that Mahdi would have been able to finish
Thank you.
his thought, but that's the reality of Mahdi's day-to-day life and what he's working on.
Unknown caller.
Mahdi will be back with us very shortly. Thank you for letting this run a little long. I know we got started a little late.
Yeah.
Hello, so briefly, finish what I was saying. Prior to my case, Target were now well-known agency when it comes down to playing a video enhancement and testifying against, let's say, court system. Today, where videos and cameras play major role in every case across the criminal system in the United States, they are one of the go-to. So in another word, my case basically is what they built the career out of. My wrongful conviction played a major role in them knowing for reliable resources to go to as far as video enhancement experts. Something that only were allowed, based on them funding the Hector County office, prosecution office during that time, and them having a relationship with the judge. And that judge is just allowing them open the doors to everything that's occurring right now for them as a business people when it comes to the business academic side of it. So that only shows us, the politician system and the politician and a business that occurs in our criminal system and a court system as well every day that we don't even know about. You know what I mean? And someone like myself, had I not been, courageous enough, to speak up and seek for help and reach out and never give up on myself, this conversation about Target would have never been out in the open. And this would have been something that's hidden. So that judge having a relationship with them and them funding that judge, the judge being Peter Cahill, only allow them to, to play a video enhancement expert when they had no business of being in that court whatsoever. Not for expert, not for or nothing. they have no excuse to be in that court, let alone testifying on my case and playing a major role in my wrongful conviction. So I just wanted to highlight that and bring it to everyone's attention in the room today.
Thank you for that, Mahdi. Can we just get one more hand for just everybody that's been a part of this today? What we want to do before we send everyone on their way is really just, this is kind of what we're calling a campaign kickoff. We aren't the first people that have been involved in the movement for Mahdi's freedom. We're not like taking credit for anything that's been done. We're just kind of calling this the campaign kickoff because this is where we're at, and we need to really have that like forward momentum that we are hoping to build from this place. And like we stated earlier, Mahdi's innocence alone, the 5-inch height difference, the botched evidence, the not collecting the alibi, all of those things are unfortunately not enough. Mahdi needs a movement. Mahdi needs us on the outside to put the feet to the fire of the people that need to feel that heat a little bit. And so just kind of starting to think about it before we jump into the specific things we're asking people to do, there's really 2 places that you can take some action. The first thing to think of is, what can you do as an individual? What are skills you have, resources you have? What is unique about your role in your community, your workplace that you can bring to this? We will have a place in a moment where you can share that with us. And also, what action can you take in your community organizations? We're here in the MFT 59 Union Hall. If you're an MFT member, what is something that you can do? If you are a community member, what is something that you can do at your place of worship, at your groups you volunteer with, political organization? Just kind of keep that in mind as we go over these next few steps. Right now, this is our list of action items that we're asking folks to do for Mahdi, and we'll have a resource shortly. The zine also has all of these things. The first thing that we're asking people to do is sign the change.org petition. On the back of the zine, that's this top link. This was something that was started before our current campaign that we've been doing, but we want to direct as many people to that as we can. So please sign the change.org petition. Finally, the next thing is to sign up for our stay in touch form. That's on the backside, this bottom QR code. It's just a Google form where we're asking for email address, phone number if you'd like to be added to a signal group that we're starting, and also it's a place for you to tell us like what reasons are you able to share. Nick, who we shouted out earlier, was at one of our past info sessions and said, what I've got is I have a printing, I'm able to create materials like that. That is a huge help for us. Yeah, please, let's give a hand to Nick for helping us out with all of that. We are also asking people to call and email Mary Moriarty's office. We have a script that you can read off of. We will share a link to a Google form where if you'd like us to come and do an information session at your community organization, we're collecting those requests there. Share Mahdi's story with family, friends, colleagues. Take several zines with you. Give them to people, leave them at coffee shops that you go to. And finally, write to Mahdi, contribute to his JPay. It's very easy to do email communication. It's very easy to do written communication, and all of those things we have some resources for if you've never done it before. The first thing, this is that stay in touch form at the bottom. Please, we need to stay connected in order to keep this work moving forward. So whatever propelled you to be here means that you are somebody that we want on the campaign. So please let us know how we can get in touch with you for our next steps. this QR code would go to the, we have like a public Google Drive where we have organizing resources, things like that. We also have a document where we have the PDF documents. So if you give all of yours away, we have some PDFs here where you can print them out at home. These are beautiful glossy paper, beautiful colors. It also prints really nicely in black and white. I just have a black and white color printer and I did a couple tests. They look great. So please use this to share Mahdi's story, especially since we have so many great resources. We have links to all of MJ's excellent reporting, links to primary sources, the police document, court transcripts, things like that. The freemahdiali.com website is still under construction. That will be over the next week or so, looking good. So don't judge me too hard on that QR code. And then finally, there's this take action for Mahdi sheet where we are using, we are kind of just collecting all of these things. Can you go back one? I accidentally clicked. That's where you will find the script for Mary Moriarty's office. It is where we have like frequently asked questions on how to use JPay and all of those ways to communicate with Mahdi. And feel free to bookmark that link. We're gonna make sure that it keeps getting updated as things change so that you have it all in one area.
You said who Mary Moriarty is?
Oh yeah, Mary Moriarty is currently the Hennepin County attorney. She is in the role that like Mike Freeman and A.D. Klobuchar were in for that 28 years. And she is, compared to them, a breath of fresh air. And we think that she will be an ally with us in this. So if you do call it, it's not necessarily confrontational. It's mostly a support more than anything. Thank you for that, Isaac. And finally, the last specific thing, if you're here from NFT, we have introduced a resolution that will be at this upcoming Wednesday's teacher chapter meeting. That's going to be at 5 p.m. It'll be a virtual meeting. If you've never been at it before, the resolution will be read. There's going to be an opportunity for 3 people to speak for the resolution, 3 people to speak against, and then I believe it's just a majority vote. We don't think that this is anything that's going to move the needle in a really big way, but this is one way that we are using our role and our ability as rank and file members to draw attention to this case. Yeah. And you can use that as a model at your other organizations. I'm sure there's ways to pass resolutions and all those kinds of things. The program went a little bit longer than we intended, and so we probably won't do too much with this letter writing piece today. However, if you, this table over here that these folks are at, before you leave, please take as many zines with you. Also, Mahdi has been we've been just asking him to write a lot of his thoughts about just various things, and we intend to publish them as like a blog, but we printed out 2 of them. We have one where Mahdi sort of wrote a call to action for all of us, and we have one that Mahdi wrote that's called To Our Youth, where it's just a lot of advice for young people. I think they would both be really great, really Mahdi's an excellent writer. Mahdi's an excellent witness to his own situation, and he speaks about it so clearly and with such love for his community that we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to get that as well. And I guess to wrap up, I want to do what Brenda was hoping we would do and just like hear from a couple people, like what does everything that you've had presented today, like if we can get like 2 people brave enough to just kind of say a couple things, we'd love to hear it. Be brave. Please.
So hi, I'm Megan. I'm the Hennepin County president, and Nick's spouse who printed me. Part of the reason that we're here is we've done a lot of deprogramming that you get as a white person in this country. And one of the things that we've realized is it's not enough to say, oh, I'm not racist. You actually have to do something about it.
Ooh. Good job, Megan.
One more quick thing, if I may.
That make my heart.
I think this really grabbed my attention because I worked not for, but at Target headquarters as a subcontractor for 11 years. And what I think is really interesting about this whole relationship that Target has with law enforcement is that law enforcement calls Target when they need help solving a case, not the other way around. What's like, that just seems like a very odd power dynamic. What are they getting in return for that? You know, what's the incentive? What's the incentive to put all these cameras all over downtown? Why do they have these operation centers in Las Vegas that do the same thing? You know, they have stuff like this in every major city. And I don't think enough people know what they've done. Yeah, that's
Thank you.
I just want to say, as an educator and as Nick's spouse, I've seen a lot of the work that's been going into this, and now I've heard Mahdi speak 3 times, and every time I find something new to grab onto, and each time I leave, you know, really upset, but feeling empowered and inspired to continue on this journey. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Question for you. So we know that Minneapolis Public School has an office called Office of Direct Student Achievement. Did you ever reach out to them and tell them your project that you just mentioned, that we need to teach our youth, you know, how to?
But I will.
Yeah.
Well, it was just gutted. The Office of Black Male Achievement was just gutted. And so, I'm not sure if there's anybody standing, maybe 1 or 2. But yes, I can. The person Mahdi talked about.
Just in case, Mahdi, just in case you get kicked off, and is there a message people want to give to Mahdi? I'm gonna hold out the microphone for folks.
We love you, Mahdi.
I want to thank everybody for being here.
This is Miss Brenda Johnson. Stay strong and know that I'm in the fight with you. I have not forgotten about you. You touched my heart and my soul, and so I know that I'm with you. Stay strong. You're coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add, so I mentioned earlier, I'm a teacher at South with Sirdar and Nick and Isaac. He got to school with Mahdi, did it when he got arrested, and we'd be lying as teachers if we didn't say we had favorite students, right? Like educators do, we're human. But it's important that we advocate for all. Thank you for using GTL. For students who are not our favorite students who might get in trouble. That's right. They might be jerks sometimes. We have to advocate for them too, right? Nobody deserves to be snatched up by the police, wrongfully incarcerated. And it's often when it's students who might be troublemakers, it's easy for educators and community members to say that probably did it.
Yeah, say that.
We got to change that mentality. We have to be ready to fight for all of our students, whether they're troublemakers, whether they're A students. Let Mahdi's case be an example of how a student who is not being looked after could just be snatched away and kidnapped into a system, a predatory system that has no regard for our children.
And one thing I want to say, we got to stop looking at our children as being the kids who have who struggle a little more. Those are root cause issues. So it may be something that's going on in home. Sometimes it's bullies in the school. The bully situation has got out of hand in the school. And so we have to notice, when we notice kids who are struggling, try to give them a little more love and figure out if we can figure out what's going on and look at the root cause. Another thing I want to say is my organization has a program around 5A. That's the Fifth Amendment when you're talking about teaching the kids how to interact with police. We have these cards. And we are trying to get our pilot program off the ground. We have been giving out these cards anywhere we can. But one of the things is our organization is very underfunded. This whole time, I have had to access my resources to where I don't have anything else to give besides my voice. And so I really think it's very important for us to, we call that the process, the entry process. And so how do we protect our kids at the entry process before they make it to the re-entry process, right? And that's teaching them how to best protect themselves. It's the Fifth Amendment. We also teach on the Fourth and the Second Amendment as well. We have David Bonkley. He has the third Banky. He's has a movement that's going on around in prison slavery, where we are trying to get that 13th Amendment removed from the Constitution and also make sure that inmates are not making 15 cents an hour. My brother worked almost 20 years for anywhere between 12 cents to 50 cents. And so if we have folks working, we need to have a real re-entry process to where they have something to come back into the community and not when they get here. We have to start looking at 6 months prior to this person coming out. Do they have money saved? Is there a place for them to live? How are we re-entering our folks who have been kidnapped from our community back into our community? And another thing that we look at is not only the wrongfully incarcerated, we found that a lot of these cases are overly sentenced. And so that's a problem as well. How much time is too much time for an innocent man? I'll ask again, how much time is too much time for an innocent man? And I'll leave it right there.
Yeah, and so thank you so much to everyone for being here. We're gonna wrap up. We've only got the space until 2 o'clock. I believe there's, Zainab, yes.
Hi, everyone. I just want to add one more thing. My name is Zainab. First of all, I'm a South High teacher as well as Nella and Isaac. I just want to thank everyone. I think one of the power I look at it is knowledge. I wasn't knowledgeable of this case. It's just really sad to see this. This is like, as a teacher, as an educator, not knowing. That's a huge thing for me, first and foremost. The second thing I see is teachers at school, what they do is when students is in trouble, these are children, their brain's still growing, so they don't know right from wrong yet. That's why they need someone to guide them. So the student gets suspended or something happens, right? And then they come back. The teacher's starting fresh for that student as if nothing happened. You get eye rollers on them, just giving them this attitude, it's like, you're back again. That student doesn't want to be in that classroom anymore. So then what they do, they skip. Yes. And then they're in the hallway. So next thing you know, you see the dean or the, administration, why are you in the hallway? Not asking again, what's going on? And I think that just adds up to the student not wanting to be in a classroom anymore, why he didn't want it to be in the class, he left, and now this is why Mahdi is in this predicament because of leaving the school. So how do we make our children, our students love school? One of them, decriminalizing them, like not making them into this horrible individual. They make mistake. You made mistake when you were a child. And that's exactly what's going on. As a mother myself, I have a 15-year-old son who is in Minneapolis Public School and a daughter who's 13 years old. And I'm raising them as my own with no help, obviously. And it's a difficult.
Yes.
And it takes toll on your mental being. And as an immigrant, we come here promising, all these wonderful, amazing things. And then now we're caught up in this system because first and foremost, lack of knowledge. We were not told how to do things. We're not educated. I remember early 90s, my father dropped us in a place that he thought was wonderful because again, he isolated us, put us in this white neighborhoods and said, there you go. You're going to get a better education. Next thing you know, they split in my parents and he ran up back to the, where he came from. And now we're here. Next thing we know, we're all in trouble. My brother's getting kicked out of schools. And then it's this mess has been created. So just that whole isolating, thinking people that were here before you are bad. Now you got to stay away from them. It's another issues that the immigrants are facing, especially the Black immigrants. As a Black person, we're told, oh my goodness, stay away from North Minneapolis, go down south. And now what happens? You got into huge, worse than when you are in North Minneapolis. I chose I lived in North Minneapolis for 8 years now in Brooklyn Park.
I just want to say something too. Remember that the precursor to the pipeline for our kids is foster care. Remember that? And then the number 2 thing is that I've seen so much brilliance in the 17 years that I've been teaching at the JDC. our brilliance lies within those walls. And it is our responsibility to bring it out. And so we have graduations, so I invite you guys to come to some graduations, because we graduate our kids in the jail.
Thanks again to everyone for being here. What we want to do before we leave is through JPay, you're able to send like 30-second videos. I think what we'd love to do is just kind of get everyone up here so that we can send Mahdi a video message. And also take a group picture to send to folks. So I think that's how we're gonna end after we hear from a beer.
Yeah, I want you all to get to know that we're gonna be strong when we all together. And we're gonna stand up for every single cause that this system been destroying.
Yes.
You know, we have kids like Mahdi Ali story. We have kids in Gaza. We have kids in our school that they're running, you know, and they're not in the building, and the system itself is even not right in Minneapolis Public School. So I'm saying it loud and saying it clear to everyone here. We need to get better. We need to stand up, all of us.
Run back. Yeah, run back. Thank you. I felt that power. Come give me a hug.